Makes us neighbors. Proudy's my name. Ben Proudy. You know, in a big city, nobody ever gets to know his name.
In 1942, a famous actor went on trial for attacking 2 teenage girls on his yacht. In 1958, a movie star's daughter stabbed her mother's boyfriend in their kitchen. In 1971, another beloved actor calmly told a magazine he believed in white supremacy. These weren't tabloid rumors. They were court cases and published interviews. Hollywood protected them, covered for them, and kept making them rich. But the victims never forgot. The evidence never disappeared. And the real stories behind these stars are worse than any movie plot. Charlie Chaplin. Charlie Chaplin was a genius who made the world laugh. His little tramp character, with a funny walk and a tiny mustache, won hearts everywhere. In movies like The Kid, The Gold Rush, and Modern Times, he told stories of hope and struggle that felt real to millions. But off-screen, Chaplin's life was a mess. He made some really bad choices, especially with young women. One tough story was with Lita Grey, whom he met when she was only 8 at a Hollywood cafe. At 12, he cast her in The Kid as a flirting angel. By 15, she was the leading lady in The Gold Rush, and Chaplin, then 35, started a relationship with her. When she got pregnant, he faced serious legal trouble. To avoid jail, they secretly married in November 1924 in Mexico. Lita later said in court that Chaplin pressured her to make a difficult choice about their unborn child, showing a selfish side the world didn't know. Their marriage was a disaster. Chaplin barely paid attention to Lita or their 2 sons, Charles Jr., born in May 1925, and Sidney, born 10 months later in March 1926. By 1927, their divorce was all over the news. Lita's court filings, packed with wild claims about Chaplin, were sold like hot gossip. The settlement was massive, $600,000 plus $100,000 for each son. It was the biggest divorce payout ever back then. Then, just 5 months later, Lita's former butler, Don Solovich, was mysteriously killed in Utah. Some whispered Chaplin might be linked, but no proof ever surfaced. The drama stuck to him like glue. Chaplin kept making mistakes. In 1941, at 52, he got involved with 21-year-old Joan Barry. She claimed they were together multiple times in December 1942, and by October 1943, she had a daughter, Carol Ann. Chaplin insisted he wasn't the father, but he faced legal battles, including a paternity lawsuit. Blood tests showed he wasn't the dad, but California courts didn't accept those tests then. In April 1945, a jury voted 11-1 that he was, forcing him to pay child support. It was unfair, but it later helped change California laws to allow blood test evidence. On top of that, Chaplin's political views got him in hot water. During the Red Scare, the FBI kept a close eye on him, piling up a 100-page file. In December 1942, he said, "I'm not a communist, but I feel pretty pro-communist." And that stirred up trouble. His movies Modern Times and The Great Dictator were labeled as propaganda. On September 19, 1952, while heading to London for his film Limelight, the U.S. government blocked him from coming back. They demanded he prove he was fit morally and politically. Feeling crushed, Chaplin chose to leave for good. He settled in Switzerland for 20 years, only returning in 1972 for awards. Roscoe, Fatty Arbuckle, was once one of the biggest names in Hollywood. In the early days of silent film, no one made people laugh quite like him. He acted, directed, and wrote for the screen. At the top of his game, he was earning over $1 million a year. But then, everything fell apart in just one weekend. It was Labor Day, September 5, 1921. Arbuckle was recovering from painful burns on his legs after a studio accident. But he still went to San Francisco with 2 friends for a holiday break. They checked into the St. Francis Hotel. 3 connected rooms. Arbuckle and one friend in 1219, another friend in 1221. Room 1220 was set up for partying. One of the guests was a 25-year-old actress named Virginia Rapp. She arrived with a woman named Maud Delmont, whom she barely knew. No one knew that the party would turn into a national scandal. Rappy became violently ill inside Arbuckle's room. Delmont later claimed that Arbuckle had dragged Rapp inside after a few drinks and said, "I've waited for you 5 years, and now I've got you." Delmont said she heard screaming. She claimed Arbuckle came out later wearing pajamas and Rapp's hat, grinning. Inside, Rapp was moaning in pain, saying, "I am dying. I am dying." He did it. A hotel doctor blamed alcohol poisoning and gave her morphine. But her condition worsened. She was finally taken to a hospital 2 days later. On September 9th, she died. The cause was peritonitis from a ruptured bladder. The autopsy showed she had chronic urinary tract problems. Drinking likely made it worse. Still, rumors spread fast. Some said Arbuckle had used a piece of ice in a sexual assault. Others said it was a Coca-Cola bottle or a champagne bottle. There was no proof, but the public wanted blood. The very next day, Arbuckle was arrested and charged with murder. No bail. Headlines exploded. The press called him a monster. The district attorney, Matthew Brady, wanted to be governor and used the case to boost his name. He pushed witnesses to lie. His main witness, Maud Delmont, had a record: blackmail, extortion, prostitution. Her story kept changing. One letter even revealed a plan to squeeze Arbuckle for cash. The first trial began in December 1921. It ended in a hung jury. 10 voted not guilty. 2 held out. They'd been influenced by the press. The second trial was worse. Another hung jury. This time, 9 voted to convict. The third trial started in March 1922. It was over in 5 minutes. The jury returned with a full acquittal. But they didn't stop there. They gave a rare apology. Acquittal is not enough. A great injustice has been done to Roscoe Arbuckle. There was not the slightest proof to connect him to any crime. But by then, the damage was done. Hollywood had already turned its back on him. His movies were banned. His fortune was drained. Studio heads told others not to defend him. Even after the ban was lifted, audiences weren't interested. He tried to rebuild behind the camera using the name William B. Goodrich. Will Be Good. He directed short films quietly, out of the spotlight. In 1933, Warner Brothers offered him a second chance. He signed a contract to return to acting. That day, he called it the best day of my life. But the comeback never happened. Just hours later, Arbuckle died from a heart attack. John Wayne was the face of American cinema for more than 30 years. With his deep voice, strong walk, and no-nonsense style, he became the hero every kid wanted to be. It all began in 1939 with Stagecoach. One dramatic shot by director John Ford turned Wayne from a small-time actor into a star overnight. The two men would work together again and again, changing the way westerns were made. But behind the fame and applause was a very different man. In 1971, Wayne gave an interview to Playboy magazine. What he said shocked the world. He told the interviewer, "I believe in white supremacy until the blacks are educated to a point of responsibility." He said he didn't believe in giving leadership roles to what he called irresponsible people. These weren't drunken outbursts or slips of the tongue. They were calm, clear beliefs. He went even further when asked about Native Americans. The Indians were selfishly trying to keep the land for themselves, he said, brushing off centuries of violence and forced removals like they were minor misunderstandings. He didn't see genocide. He saw progress. Wayne's hate didn't stop at race. When talking about Midnight Cowboy, a film about two lonely men surviving together in New York City, he didn't just dismiss it, he used a slur. He called it a story about two foptites. Yet he had no issue with sex in films. Healthy, lusty sex is wonderful, he said. His problem wasn't with adult content, it was with homosexuality. Even after his death in 1979, those words kept echoing. In 2020, during the Black Lives Matter protests, the University of Southern California took down a large John Wayne exhibit from their film school. It had been there for years, but the school said the times had changed. The assistant dean of diversity explained it was removed because of Wayne's history and the nationwide calls to confront racism. The items weren't destroyed. They were moved to the archives, where only researchers could see them. The same year, Democrats in Orange County pushed to rename the John Wayne Airport. The name, once a source of pride, had become a symbol of bigotry. Spike Lee, one of America's most respected directors, said Wayne's films, especially those made with John Ford, spread racist images that shaped public opinion for generations. What once looked like heroism now feels like something else entirely. Alfred Hitchcock was the king of suspense. He made movies that grabbed your nerves and didn't let go. Films like Psycho, Rear Window, North by Northwest, and Vertigo weren't just popular. They changed the way movies were made. Psycho alone made over 60 million, a huge number at the time. He used tricks no one had ever seen before. Behind the camera, though, Hitchcock wasn't the charming genius people imagined. To some actresses, he was a nightmare. Tippi Hedren was one of them. She was a single mother when Hitchcock spotted her in a soda commercial. He gave her the lead role in The Birds in 1963. At first, it seemed like a dream. It quickly turned into something else. Hitchcock became obsessed. According to Hedren, he grabbed her in private and touched her in ways that were clearly sexual. It was perverse, and it was ugly, she said years later. He never forced her into sex, but he made life on set unbearable. When she refused his advances, he got revenge. During the filming of The Birds, he used real birds in one key scene instead of mechanical ones. They pecked her face and body until she bled. Filming that scene took 5 days. Afterward, she collapsed in tears. But the abuse didn't stop there. She starred in his next movie, Marnie, in 1964. After that, he refused to let her work. She was still under contract, earning $600 a week. But he blocked her from taking any other roles. When other directors called to hire her, he lied and said she was unavailable. She stood up to him. "Do what you have to do. I don't care. I'm out," she said. But Hitchcock followed through on his threat. Her career never recovered. Years later, her granddaughter Dakota Johnson, also an actress, said publicly, "Hitchcock ruined her career because she didn't want to sleep with him." He did similar things to other women. Kim Novak, the star of Vertigo, said he made her life difficult too. He humiliated her during meals, controlled how she looked, and gave her roles that didn't fit. It became so widely known that in 2012, HBO made a movie about it. The girl told the story of Hedren's abuse. The reviews were clear. The stories were horrifying. Errol Flynn was a big-time movie star who made everyone cheer with his wild sword fights. He starred in cool films like The Charge of the Light Brigade in 1936, The Adventures of Robin Hood in 1938, and The Seahawk in 1940. Behind all that fun, he hid a shady secret. In October 1942, when he was 33, Flynn landed in big trouble. He faced a court in Los Angeles for 3 counts of statutory rape. 2 young girls were involved. One was 15-year-old Peggy Satterley. She thought she was just having fun on Flynn's yacht, the Sirocco, back in August 1941. But on a longer trip for a Life magazine shoot, he gave her a spiked drink. She said he hurt her on 2 nights in different cabins. The other girl, Betty Hansen, just left high school. A Warner Brothers worker tricked her to a Bel Air party. They said Flynn could help her movie dreams if she was nice. After a drink that made her sick, she claimed he took her upstairs and hurt her. The trial was wild. It showed how hard it was for the girls back in 1940s Hollywood. A doctor found signs of harm on Satterlee, but got ignored because she was a woman. The judge tossed out her strongest story. He told the jury birth certificates didn't prove ages. Maybe Flynn didn't know. Flynn's lawyer put on a silly act to mock one girl's words. The girls got blamed, while Flynn played it cool in court. His quick denials won the crowd. On February 6, 1943, Flynn walked free, but he didn't stop. In 1949, he started something risky with 15-year-old dancer Beverly Aidland. He met her on the Warner Brothers lot. Just 7 years after his trial, he invited her to a fake audition at a Hollywood Hills mansion. No role existed. It was already taken. He called her his darling Woodsy. Shockingly, her mom, Florence Adland, let it happen. She thought it could boost Beverly's career. Flynn lived wild. He called himself an agnostic and existential hedonist. He said, "I know that truth is sometimes an octagon, and that I am one. Contradiction is a cardinal element of life." That seemed to excuse his actions. Hollywood's big shots protected him. His name even sparked the phrase, "in like Flynn tied to easy charm." Yet the girls he hurt slipped into the shadows of his flashy tale. Lana Turner was a dazzling Hollywood star who lit up the screen. They called her the Sweater Girl after her tight sweater look in They Won't Forget that same year. Her sultry style made her a favorite pinup for soldiers during World War II, but her personal life hid a scary shadow. In 1957, she fell for Johnny Stompanato, a handsome 32-year-old mobster tied to crime boss Mickey Cohen. She didn't know it at first, but this romance was a trap. Cohen and Stompanato cooked up a plan to blackmail rich stars. Author Casey Sherman says they flipped a classic honey trap. They used Stompanato to lure Lana into bed. Their goal was to film her in risky situations with others to hold over her head. They'd tried this on big names like Fred Astaire, Lucille Ball, Cary Grant, Rock Hudson, and Spencer Tracy. Things turned ugly fast. Stompanato turned cruel. He tormented Lana with his gun, warning he could ruin her career and life with one shot. Her lawyer found films of Lana in tough spots. They believed Stompanato drugged her and set up scenes with other women to blackmail her. The terror grew. He threatened Lana's mom and her 14-year-old daughter, Cheryl, too. The big moment hit on Good Friday, April 4, 1958, at Lana's Beverly Hills home on North Bedford Drive. Stompanato stormed in, demanding she pay his gambling debts. He even pulled a razor blade, threatening to slash her. Cheryl saw the danger. She grabbed a kitchen knife and stabbed Stompanato in the stomach. He didn't survive. The coroner's inquest that followed was the wildest LA had ever seen. Lana's tearful story helped clear Cheryl. The court called it justifiable homicide to protect her mom. This scandal ripped open the dark link between Hollywood stars and crime bosses. It left a stain on Lana's shining image forever. Howard Hughes was born on Christmas Eve in 1905. By the time he was 25, he had already made one of the most expensive movies ever filmed. It was called Hell's Angels, and it cost $3.5 million, a massive amount in 1930. He wasn't just throwing money around. The film earned an Oscar nomination for Best Cinematography. Then came Scarface in 1932, so violent that censors refused to release it for years. He had already won his first Oscar in 1927 for 2 Arabian Nights, and racked up more nominations with The Racket and the front page. Everyone in Hollywood knew his name, but what they didn't know, what they couldn't see yet, was how dark things would get. In 1948, Hughes bought most of RKO Pictures. It was a business move on the outside. But in reality, he used the studio like a personal playground. He would hunt for young, beautiful actresses. He promised them fame, gave them contracts, charmed them, and even proposed marriage. Then he locked them in. Literally. He bought them houses that were rigged with surveillance cameras. His security team monitored everything. The women couldn't date anyone else. They couldn't work for other studios. And when Hughes got bored, he disappeared, leaving them stuck, watched, and silenced. His obsession with control was disturbing. When he made The Outlaw in 1943, he found Jane Russell, a teenager at the time, and became fixated. Not on her acting, but on her body. He even designed a special bra to make her breasts look bigger on camera. Jane hated it. She never wore it. She stuffed tissue in a regular bra instead and tightened the straps. But the camera made his intention clear. The censors were furious. The movie was banned for years, not released widely until 1946, all because of how much focus he put on Jane's body. While all of this was happening, Hughes's mind was falling apart. Psychologists later said he had a severe avoidance disorder. Some of it came from his mother, who terrified him with warnings about germs and disease. But accidents didn't help either. He crashed planes, again and again. One wreck during Hell's Angels crushed his face. Later, he ran over and killed a pedestrian. He crashed planes that killed passengers. His head was injured many times, and experts believe those crashes caused permanent brain damage. By the time Hughes turned 40, he was addicted to morphine. After a crash involving the FX-11 fighter jet nearly killed him, he switched to codeine and never let go. He withdrew from the world. He sat alone in dark hotel rooms, naked and unwashed, refusing to see anyone except a few employees. He wrote instruction manuals on how to open a can of peaches, literally. First remove the label, then scrub the can to bare metal, then wash it again, and again, and again. This is how one of the richest, most powerful men in Hollywood ended his life. Not as a director, not as a businessman, but as a forgotten man locked inside a hotel room, surrounded by shadows of women he once controlled and haunted by the noise of engines he could no longer fly. When he died in 1976, at age 70, he weighed less than 100 pounds. His nails were inches long. His hair was matted. The world had moved on. But Hughes had vanished long before his heart stopped beating. Ingrid Bergman was one of the most admired women in Hollywood during the 1940s. After starring in hits like Casablanca and Notorious, she became the face of virtue. Audiences saw her as pure, honest, and almost saint-like. But behind the perfect image, something was brewing that would soon explode into one of the biggest scandals in Hollywood history. It all started with a letter. In the late 1940s, Ingrid wrote to Italian director Roberto Rossellini. She admired his powerful, gritty films and wanted to work with him. That simple gesture would soon turn her world upside down. She flew to Italy in 1949 to start filming Stromboli. It was supposed to be a short trip. Instead, she fell deeply in love. She left her husband, Petter Lindström, and their daughter behind, and started a passionate affair with Rossellini. They drove through the Italian countryside, hid away in coastal towns, and ignored the storm waiting back home. Then came the shock that made headlines around the world. On February 2, 1950, Ingrid gave birth to a son, Roberto's son, while she was still married to Lindström. The baby, named Robin, became a symbol of what the public saw as betrayal. People didn't just feel disappointed, they felt fooled. To them, Ingrid wasn't just an actress. She was the good woman she played on screen. Her fall from grace hit like a hammer. The reaction in America was brutal. Senator Edwin Johnson stood on the Senate floor and attacked her personally. He called her a threat to society, labeling her one of Hollywood's apostles of degradation. He even wanted laws to control who could act in films, suggesting licenses be given or taken away based on a person's moral character. It was more than criticism. It was character assassination. Churches joined in. In Birmingham, pastors said Stromboli promoted adultery. In Syracuse, city leaders tried to ban her movies entirely. In Los Angeles, church councils passed formal resolutions against her. She wasn't just being judged, she was being hunted. Then came the attacks on Rossellini himself. Senator Johnson called him a fascist libertine and accused him of being a Nazi collaborator, even though there was no proof. The hysteria became a public trial without a courtroom, and it cost Bergman everything. She lost her Hollywood career. Studios stopped calling. Advertisers pulled their support. For 7 years, she didn't work in America. Still, the romance didn't last. Rossellini became controlling. He refused to let her act in other directors' films. Eventually, he had an affair with a young Indian actress, Sonali Dasgupta. By 1957, their marriage was over. Bergman, heartbroken but determined, began to rebuild. In time, she made her way back. She returned to the U.S. and won an Oscar for Anastasia. It was a comeback few expected. But even after the awards and applause, the scandal stayed with her. It reminded everyone how quickly Hollywood could turn on a woman who dared to follow her heart instead of its rules. Louis B. Mayer was once the most powerful man in Hollywood. As the head of MGM from the 1920s to the 1950s, he shaped what America saw on screen. His films sold a dream: clean families, noble heroes, happy endings. He proudly said, "I make pictures you can take your mother and your children to see." He didn't just want to entertain. He wanted to teach values. He called marriage sacred. He called mothers saints. His movies reflected that, but behind closed doors, Mayer lived a very different story. The man who spoke of honor and purity used his power to control and destroy young stars. One of the most tragic examples was Judy Garland. She joined MGM at just 11 years old. By age 12, Mayer had her on diet pills, even though she was already thin, almost dangerously so. He told her she was fat, over and over. Even on her birthday, she wasn't allowed to eat cake. That was just the start. Judy was never alone. MGM assigned a strict chaperone to follow her 24/7. This woman watched her constantly, even in the bathroom. Mayer didn't just own her image, he tried to own her entire life. If she stepped out of line, even slightly, he threatened to fire her. Judy became a teenager trapped in a machine, overworked and terrified, with no clue how much money she made or how to say what she truly felt. And she wasn't the only one. Joan Crawford had a scandal in her past. In the 1920s, long before she was famous, she had appeared in a pornographic short film. Mayer found out. But instead of cutting her loose, he bought up every copy he could find. Not to shame her, but to protect her image and his investment. He didn't care what she had done. He just didn't want the public to see it. Mayer made his fortune selling morals he didn't follow. He said he worshipped good women, but he broke the ones who trusted him. He said he respected purity, but behind the scenes, he covered up dark secrets.